le monde. Je crois qu'on va commencer. Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin by welcome everybody. First of all, just remind that all must remain muted. That's improve the quality of connection. The meeting will be recorded for future reference purpose. And you should raise hand using the icon if they want to say something. Je commencerai tout de suite, là on commence. D'abord, je voudrais rappeler à tout le monde, après les bienvenus, que vous devez rester complètement avec un micro fermé pour ne pas avoir des parasites dans le son. Sauf si vous devez parler naturellement, vous devez ouvrir votre micro. La deuxième chose, c'est que le meeting est enregistré pour éventuellement plus tard si quelqu'un en a besoin. Et puis si vous voulez parler, si quelqu'un a quelque chose à dire, il lève simplement la main, il y a une icône quelque part, vous allez la voir. Si vous l'appuyez, votre main est levée et puis on vous voit, je peux donner la parole, je peux indiquer à qui il faut donner prochainement la parole. Donc, mesdames, messieurs, en attendant que la ministre du Congo en charge de l'environnement, du développement durable et du bassin du Congo, Madame Marlette Soudan-Nono nous rejoigne. Nous allons commencer et puis permettez-moi donc de saluer sa présence, son acceptation de venir. Nous saluons également l'intention affichée par le ministre sénégalais de l'Environnement et du Développement durable, son Excellence M. Abdelkarim Sall, de participer à notre webinaire. Et puis, nous allons commencer. Je salue également le secrétaire général du ministère mauritanien de la Culture, qui est le ministère en charge de la communication, M. Mohamed Ould-Soueidat. Je salue la présence du docteur Meddou Hussein, président de la APA, la haute autorité de l'information, de la communication et de l'audiovisuel. Et puis, permettez-moi de saluer Dr Balakrishna Pisupati des Nations Unies, du programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement, qui est donc l'organisateur qui est mon vis-à-vis dans cette session et qui se trouve actuellement à New Delhi, en Inde. Mes remerciements également à Madame Giovanna Moiré, experte des Nations Unies, précisément dans les conventions BRS, c'est-à-dire les conventions de Bâle, de Rotterdam et de Stockholm, qui va d'ailleurs faire une présentation. Enfin, à mes collègues journalistes de ANEJ qui ont manifesté beaucoup d'enthousiasme pour participer à cette session de formation. Donc, chers amis journalistes d'ANEJ, merci. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to salute the presence among us, but at a distance, of Her Excellency, the Minister of the Environment, Sustainable Development and the Congo Basin. And also to allow me to greet Mr. Secretary General, Mr. Soueidat, the Secretary General of the Minister of Culture, Youth and Relation with Parliament in Mauritania. Mr. Hussein Meddou, Dr. Hussein Meddou, President of the HAPA, the High Authority of the Press and the Audiovisual in Mauritania. Normally soon we will hear from Their Excellency, Her Excellency Minister from Congo, Madame Arlette Soudan-Nono, and Mr. Abdul Karim Sall, Senegalese Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development. But first, allow me also to thank and to greet Dr. Balakrishna of UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, who worked with us on the preparation for this session. He is based now in New Delhi. My thanks also to Madame Giovanna Moiré, United Nations expert, specifically in the BRS Convention, Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm. Finally, my fellow journalists who showed great enthusiasm to participate in this training and information session on chemical pollutants. Cette rencontre donc est la deuxième du genre. Elle regroupe quelques 100 journalistes africains représentant quasiment tous les pays membres des ACP, c'est-à-dire des pays Afrique, Caraïbes, Pacifique, qui sont au nombre de 49 en Afrique sur les 54 que compte notre continent. Les pays DIGE, car c'est le programme ACP MEAs qui est en partenariat avec ANEJ dans cette session de formation. La rencontre aujourd'hui, vous le savez, est dédiée à la pollution chimique, qui sera suivie d'une troisième rencontre le 7 septembre prochain, consacrée aux océans et à l'économie bleue. Notre espoir que la bataille planétaire anti-Covid porte ses fruits et que les prochaines sessions se fassent en présentiel. Alors, toutes ces sessions nous permettront de connaître les conventions environnementales multilatérales et par voie de conséquence délivrer un traitement professionnel adéquat. You will have the opportunity after the training session to ask questions, to share ideas, to comment on the information acquired. At the end, the Vice President of ANEJ, Madame Menesia Mwinjo from Namibia, and our strategy specialist, Alex Zaka from Madagascar, will give an overview for the future perspective in relation to the UNEP-ANEJ collaboration. The Vice President will speak in English and Alex Zaka in French. So, maintenant, j'invite Monsieur Balakrishna Pisupati du Programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement et qui est le manager du programme ACP MEAs de prendre la parole. Dr. Balakrishna, you have the floor. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sidi. I just want to confirm that you can hear me and see the screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, and can you see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
But I didn't see you.
No, because I've just sort of put the screen on. Thank you very much, Mr. Sidi Al-Mokhtar Shagar, the president of the ANEJ, African Network of Environmental Journalists. Very honorable Madam Arlet Sudan Nanot, the Minister of Environment, Sustainable Development and Congo Basin, joining us from Brazzaville. Honorable Mohamed Swedat, the Deputy Minister of Culture and Youth, Minister from Mauritania. Excellency President of HAPA, Mr. Hussein Meadow, and I was informed that we also will have the Vice President of AMSEN, Honorable Mr. Abdul Karim Sall, the Minister of Environment from Senegal, who will also be joining us, colleagues from ANEJ, my own colleague from UNEP, the Basel, Stockholm and Rotterdam Convention Secretariat, Ms. Giovanna Moiri, my colleague Joyce Jalakat, Ladu Lemi, and team of the ACP MEAs program. It's a great pleasure to be with you all. I'm sure several of you were with us on the 4th of May when we organized the first session of briefing for environmental journalists from the Africa region on issues related to biodiversity and the Conference of Parties. The 15 conference of parties to the CBD. And during that discussion, it was very clearly requested by the participants that we continue this engagement on a periodical basis, where several of you requested such kind of briefings on various emerging topics and current topics of interest for the region. And that is why when we decided that in partnership with ANEJ, UNEP, and the ACP MEAs 3 program will roll out a series of briefing sessions on various topics once every 2 months. So here we are for the second such briefing session, where we will be discussing the issue of chemicals and waste. And the third session will be held on the 7th of September, focusing on the issue of ocean governance. And subsequently for November, we still need to discuss on the topic. So we are hoping to continue this kind of an engagement. But having said that, what I would like to do is to very quickly take you through a short presentation of what this program is about. The ACP MEAs 3 program, under which this particular meeting is being organized. It's a special program of UNEP supporting countries in Africa, Caribbean, and the Pacific region covering 79 countries since 2009. So we are in the third phase of this program that will continue till 2024 and hopefully 2025 because of the delays of implementation. And the focus of this program is on South-South cooperation, how countries from these three regions can work together, can exchange ideas, experiences, and expertise. The thematic areas for the current phase of this particular program looks at compliance to a number of multilateral environmental agreements. I'm sure all of you or several of you have heard of the Climate Change Convention, which is one of the multilateral environmental agreement, but we have several of them related to biodiversity called the Convention on Biological Diversity. There is a UN Convention to combat desertification, a number of conventions related to chemicals and waste, and also chemicals conventions and agreements related to ocean governance. The second theme of this program is on ocean governance, where we work with what are called the regional seas conventions in all the three regions, in the Caribbean region, in the Pacific region, and also in Africa. And the third focal area of this program is on agriculture, the role of agriculture, the impacts of chemicals and pollution on agriculture, mainstreaming agriculture and biodiversity. That basically is the focus. And as I mentioned that we work with a number of different conventions, the scope as you can see on the screen, which I hope all of you can. We work with a number of biodiversity conventions like the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, the Convention on Migratory Species, the International Treaty, a number of those biodiversity conventions. But we also work with Chemicals and Waste Cluster Convention, which is the Rotterdam, Stockholm, and the Basel Convention. We have a colleague who will be presenting in French a kind of an overview of the issue on chemicals and waste, but also brief you about the forthcoming meeting of the governing body of this convention, which is being held now in 2021 in a virtual format and in person in 2022. And you also will hear from our colleague from UNEP on what UNEP does on chemicals related issues. So we also work with the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which is a kind of a recent convention. And in terms of oceans and seas related issues, we work with what's called the Abidjan Convention and also the Nairobi Convention, which are two specific conventions focusing for the oceans and seas related issues in Africa. We work with the Noumea Convention for the Pacific region and the Cartagena Convention for the Caribbean region. And most of the work of the program is done through partners, for example, through the South Pacific, the Secretariat for the Pacific Regional Environment Program, the African Union Commission for Africa, the CARICOM Secretariat for Caribbean, and also through a lot of partners like ANEJ themselves when we want to connect media and journalists. However, UNEP also does some direct implementation, and this particular event or this particular program is related to that direct implementation from UNEP. This entire program is funded and supported by European Union, but we also have the Organization for ACP States Secretariat, which is an intergovernmental body established and present in Brussels, where OACPS Secretariat acts as an important program partner for implementation. In terms of focus on Africa, these are three very broad areas. I'm not getting into too much of details of what we do. We have more than 100+ activities that we undertake in Africa region. We focus on capacity building, awareness raising, and also raising the regional and the national voices of Africa in terms of regional and global events and in different negotiations, so that the interests and priorities of Africa region is appropriately reflected. In terms of a partnership specific for Africa, we work with a number of partners, including youth. We've just launched a program targeting youth from Africa in terms of empowering them, mentoring them, and training them on various issues of environment and environmental governance. We work with women. We work with media and journalists like yourselves that we are organizing this session today. We work with private sector, judiciary, and also with parliamentarians, where we work with the Inter-Parliamentary Union based in Geneva, where we bring a number of parliamentarians at regional and national level discussions on issues related to environment management, and environmental governance. In terms of specific partnership with ANEJ, we are looking at, as I mentioned before, a bi-monthly set of events focusing on emerging issues. supporting for information and knowledge management, support publication of features and opinion articles. Those of you who are interested to continue focusing on reviewing and researching and publishing some of the articles, we'll be more than happy to provide support, and also linking with other regions, because similar to ANEJ for Africa, we'll also be engaging with similar environmental journalist networks for Africa, for Caribbean and the Pacific also. So that's very quickly an overview of the program. So you will hear a little bit more from two of my colleagues, Ms. Giovanna Moyer from the BRS Secretariat, the Basel Rotterdam Stockholm Convention Secretariat, on issues related to chemicals and waste and the upcoming Conference of Parties. And also my own colleague sitting in Nairobi, Ms. Joyce Jalagat, who will be speaking about UNEP activities in the area of chemicals and waste. And then we will have a facilitated discussion facilitated by Mr. Sidi El Mokhtar from ANEJ. And then we will take some questions. We will have a presentation of Ms. Giovanna in French, so that it will be helping French-speaking colleagues. But the question answer sessions and rest of the session will be a combination of English and French. So with that, I'll stop and hand over back to Mr. Sidi for taking it to the next level. Thank you, Mr. Sidi. And thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Balakrishna Pisupati from UNEP, based in New Delhi. Je voudrais juste dire un peu à tout le monde que nous avons tout à l'heure Son Excellence Madame Marlette Soudan-Nono, ministre de l'Environnement, du Développement durable et du Bassin du Congo. Excellence Madame la Ministre, merci beaucoup de nous rejoindre. Nous avons malheureusement commencé juste 5 minutes avant vous, mais c'est un honneur de vous avoir avec nous. Nous allons donc tout à l'heure vous donner la parole, juste le temps de traduire ce mot et de vous souhaiter la bienvenue parmi nous. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Her Excellency Madame Arlette Soudan-Nono, Minister of Environment, Sustainable Development and Congo Basin from Congo. Minister, Excellency, thank you very much to join us, and you are welcome in this important webinar from moderated from Nouakchott and New Delhi. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous donnons la parole à Son Excellence la Ministre. Her Excellency, you have the floor.
Merci à tous. Merci vraiment Sidi El Mokhtar pour cette bonne introduction. Je vous prie d'entrée de jeu de m'excuser pour ces quelques instants de retard et un agenda un peu difficile en ce moment. Mesdames et messieurs, Madame la directrice régionale Afrique du CNUE, Mesdames et messieurs les journalistes, chers amis, chers tous, Mesdames et messieurs, je voudrais avant tout vous remercier pour l'organisation de cette activité et pour le choix porté sur ma personne afin de livrer le message d'ouverture de vos travaux relatifs au renforcement des capacités portant sur la pollution chimique et ses déchets. Mesdames et messieurs, la santé humaine est intimement liée à l'état de l'environnement. Le document final de la Conférence des Nations Unies sur le développement durable Rio+20, l'avenir que nous voulons, indique que la santé est à la fois une condition préalable, le résultat est un indicateur des 3 volets du développement durable, notamment environnemental et notamment social, environnemental et économique. Depuis quelques années, les nations du monde en général et africaines en particulier font face à des pollutions dues en grande partie à une mauvaise gestion des produits chimiques et déchets dangereux, pour la plupart produits par des pays fortement industrialisés. La richesse et la prospérité des nations ont pris le pas sur les valeurs pourtant universellement reconnues, mais qui ne cessent d'être méprisées au détriment des égoïsmes nationaux. Mon pays, le Congo, assure actuellement la présidence de la Convention de Bamako sur les déchets produits en Afrique. Cela tombe très bien. Les modèles de production et de consommation adoptés jusqu'à présent ont un impact environnemental sans précédent, caractérisé par les changements climatiques, les cyclones, les inondations, les sécheresses, la pollution, l'accroissement de la déforestation et de la désertification, la perte de la diversité biologique et une tendance à l'augmentation de la fréquence et de l'intensité des catastrophes naturelles. Notre planète est donc au bord du gouffre, comme nous l'a rappelé récemment le GIEC. Nos océans et mers sont sujets à une pollution à grande échelle, avec au moins 8 millions de tonnes de rejets plastiques par an, d'après les découvertes de la communauté scientifique. La production agricole aujourd'hui suscite de plus en plus de questionnements sur l'utilisation de certains pesticides et engrais en raison de leurs effets néfastes sur l'environnement et la santé. Ces pesticides sont utilisés en Afrique depuis plus de 40 ans et selon les estimations, le continent détient des stocks de plus de 27 000 tonnes de pesticides obsolètes à éliminer. Vous voyez qu'il y a urgence aujourd'hui que nous portions cette problématique et que nous appuyons le programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement qui porte donc, comme je l'ai rappelé tout à l'heure, au sein de ces institutions, abrite donc la Convention de Bamako sur les déchets produits en Afrique. Et là, si je vous ouvre les chiffres de les dernières assises que nous avons eues à Brazzaville, et si je vous fais état de tous les déchets que nous sommes en train de renvoyer sur un autre continent dont, pour des raisons diplomatiques, je préfère taire le nom ici, nous avons froid dans le dos. Il y a urgence que ces questions soient réellement abordées et amplifiées par le réseau de journalistes que vous êtes. Cette situation, telle que décrite, ne peut laisser intacte la nature dont nous admirons la splendeur, mais pour combien de temps encore, si nous n'agissons pas? Les phénomènes ci-dessus décriés détruisent les systèmes écologiques qui ont toujours existé et dont l'existence conditionne la vie sur Terre. Au-delà de la valeur purement esthétique de la nature qui se détériore, la perte des éléments dont elle est porteuse a un impact sur le plan social, économique et écologique. L'Afrique est l'un des continents les plus touchés au regard de sa vulnérabilité et de ses moyens limités pour faire face aux défis environnementaux du moment. Comme nous le savons, les pollutions et dégradations des écosystèmes sont dues en grande partie à une mauvaise gestion des produits chimiques et par conséquent des déchets dangereux. Et il y a aussi quelque chose que nous n'appliquons pas souvent, ce sont les études d'impact environnemental et social qui pourraient nous mettre à l'abri de ces économies que nous voulons lancer en y apportant simplement la notion de durabilité. Cela est conciliable entre développement et notion de durabilité. En effet, les produits chimiques omniprésents et indispensables pour notre vie quotidienne sont utilisés dans la majorité des secteurs productifs et sont exploités pour la résolution de plusieurs problématiques liées à l'amélioration de la qualité de notre vie. Lorsque sont rejetés dans l'environnement, soit directement, soit sous la forme de déchets, les produits chimiques sont soumis à des processus naturels de transformation et contribuent à la dégradation de la qualité de l'air, de l'eau, des sols, des sédiments, de la végétation et de la faune. Les produits chimiques périmés ou interdits de commercialisation sont considérés à ce moment-là comme des déchets dangereux, c'est-à-dire des substances ou objets qu'on élimine quand on a l'intention d'éliminer ou quand on est tenu d'éliminer en vertu des dispositions du droit national. Certains pays occidentaux qui ont des moyens de suivi et de contrôle plus performants ont adopté des législations visant à interdire certains produits chimiques à cause de leur dangerosité avérée sur l'environnement et la santé humaine. Mais ces produits sont déversés en Afrique avec des autorisations délivrées par les autorités habilitées. Parmi ces produits figurent les équipements électriques et électroniques qui franchissent nos frontières sous diverses formes, généralement en fin de vie, et qui constituent le gros des déchets qui inondent aujourd'hui le sol africain, tels que le plomb, le cadmium et le mercure présents dans ces déchets sont ainsi libérés dans les écosystèmes. Le déversement et le recyclage des déchets électroniques en Afrique représentent un risque particulièrement grave puisque l'exposition des enfants aux produits chimiques toxiques, ainsi libérés, est particulièrement préoccupante. Face donc à l'aggravation de cette menace, tant pour les pays que pour leurs habitants, compte tenu des graves problèmes que ces produits pourraient causer en matière de santé de l'environnement, la nécessité de renforcer les législations nationales de manière à interdire l'importation de certains produits et équipements dangereux devient donc un impératif. Pour ce faire, outre les mesures prises au niveau national, nous disposons de plusieurs accords et programmes internationaux mis en place afin de faire face aux risques liés aux produits chimiques et aux déchets dangereux. Parmi ces accords, nous pouvons citer les conventions de Bâle, de Rotterdam, de Stockholm et de Minamata. Mais également, je viens de le rappeler, nous avons cette grande convention de Bamako sur les déchets produits donc en Afrique. Mesdames et messieurs, malgré tous les efforts, nos États en proie à de multiples difficultés socio-économiques ne peuvent plus faire face aux énormes défis environnementaux. C'est pourquoi j'appelle à plus de solidarité, à une coopération plus efficiente et dynamique de la part de la communauté internationale directement concernée par la gestion des produits chimiques et des déchets dangereux. L'Afrique n'est pas un continent poubelle. Et donc, il nous faut nous mettre ensemble. Donc, j'en appelle vraiment à cet élan de solidarité. Aussi, je voudrais ici rappeler que les pays africains ont adopté en août 2008 une déclaration portant sur la santé et l'environnement en Afrique, appelée Déclaration de Libreville, à travers laquelle ils se sont engagés à mettre en œuvre 11 actions prioritaires. La mise en œuvre effective de cette feuille de route permettra, j'en suis persuadée, de relever les défis posés par les liens entre la santé et l'environnement sur le continent. Il convient d'ajouter à cette déclaration le nouveau plan d'action stratégique 2019-2029 pour l'intensification des interventions en matière de santé et d'environnement en Afrique, adopté en 2018 à Libreville. Ce plan vise à renforcer le dialogue et la coopération au niveau national et régional sur les grandes questions prioritaires en matière de santé et d'environnement et à accélérer l'intégration des actions prioritaires dans les dits domaines dans les politiques nationales de développement. Mesdames et messieurs, je terminerai par là. Une gestion rationnelle des produits chimiques et des déchets est cruciale pour relever les défis urgents tels que le changement climatique, la perte de la biodiversité et les inégalités flagrantes qui affectent les droits de l'homme et la justice sociale et entravent le développement économique. À cet égard, le rôle des professionnels des médias est donc incontournable. Il vous revient certes d'informer l'opinion sur la réalité et les risques de pollution chimique, amplifiant et accompagnant cela l'action des pouvoirs publics, mais il vous revient aussi de dire ce qui ne va pas et d'attirer l'attention sur ces mêmes pouvoirs publics quand cela est utile et nécessaire. C'est ainsi que vous remplissez votre devoir citoyen d'écologisation. Excusez-moi, il nous faut aller vers une transition réelle écologique, mais il nous faut faire preuve de beaucoup de pédagogie, de sensibilisation des esprits et des comportements. Je vous remercie. Voilà, mesdames et messieurs, cher Sidi El Mokhtar, ce que je pouvais dire à tous en termes de mots d'ouverture et de contribution tout simplement en tant que politique un peu engagée dans tout ce qui concerne l'environnement, notre biodiversité au sens large. Et nous portons également la problématique du bassin du Congo au travers le mécanisme du Fonds bleu pour le bassin du Congo qui aujourd'hui est un outil, un instrument de l'Union africaine au travers de la Commission climat du bassin du Congo qui a plus de 17 membres issus de la zone géographique économique des États d'Afrique centrale et des États d'Afrique de l'Ouest et de l'Est et qui nous permettent aujourd'hui de porter au travers de cette notion de durabilité, au travers des 17 ODD, les objectifs de développement durable et de nos agendas différents, tant de l'Union africaine que des Nations unies, de porter donc ces politiques de gestion rationnelle des déchets, donc au travers donc, des différentes conventions, celles que j'ai rappelées, de Bâle, de Rotterdam, de Stockholm, de Minamata et surtout également celle que nous avons ici en Afrique, la convention de Bamako, donc, qui est dédiée donc, sur la gestion donc, des déchets produits en Afrique. Voilà ce que je pouvais vous dire tout en vous remerciant vraiment pour cette invitation une fois de plus. Merci à tous.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, Madame la Ministre, pour cette excellente intervention. Nous vous remercions pour toute l'attention que vous portez à ce métier. Et c'est l'occasion de rappeler à tout le monde ici que Son Excellence, sa carrière publique, elle a commencé d'abord en tant qu'éminente journaliste. Donc vous êtes exactement ce que nous sommes, Madame la Ministre, des journalistes et des écologistes. Encore une fois, nous vous remercions beaucoup, Excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, let me, on behalf of all you, to thank Her Excellency, Madame Arlette Soudan Nono, for his excellent speech. Her Excellency was a journalist, was an eminent journalist. Thank you so much once again, and bye-bye, Madame la Ministre.
Merci à vous et bonne continuation à tous. Hein. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
So we are waiting for the speech of the Minister, His Excellency Abdul Karim Sall from Senegal. D'un moment à l'autre, le discours du ministre sénégalais de l'Environnement et du Développement durable, qui est également vice-président de la CMAE, la conférence des ministres africains de l'environnement pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest. D'un moment à l'autre, donc, nous allons avoir son discours. Alors, je rappelle à tout le monde que malheureusement, nous sommes 110 participants en principe, enregistrés aux Nations Unies et dans la base de données de ANEJ pour cette conférence. Mais la moitié presque n'est pas en ligne pour des raisons techniques. Nous avons reçu énormément de messages techniques pour des connexions difficiles, donc des problèmes techniques. De temps à autre, certains se connectent et d'autres nous quittent. Alors, nous continuons. And the floor, please, for Mr. Balakrishna, if you have something to say.
Nothing specific, Mr. Sidi. We can proceed with the presentation by BRS colleague. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Alors, s'il vous plaît, j'invite Madame Giovanna Moiret de la BRS, les conventions de Bâle, Rotterdam et Stockholm. Madame Giovanna, vous êtes la bienvenue.
Merci beaucoup. J'apparais vite fait pour vous dire bonjour. Je vais éteindre après ma caméra pour la qualité de la communication. J'éteins du coup. Donc, je vais partager avec vous mon présentation que j'ai faite. Je l'ai fait aussi, la même présentation, exactement la même en anglais, parce que, en fait, je pensais que j'allais faire la présentation en anglais. Bon, ce que je voulais dire, c'est que pour ceux qui ne parlent pas, to those that doesn't speak French, I have exactly the same presentation with my notes in English. So I can send by email to you because I'm unable to share here in the chat. Okay, so I'll be sending by email right now. Désolée, j'ai un souci avec ma présentation. Je vais essayer de l'ajouter à nouveau. Voilà. Est-ce que vous le voyez?
Oui, Madame Giovanna, nous avons exactement sur l'écran les slides de votre présentation par PowerPoint. Vous pouvez commencer. Écoutez, vous pouvez aussi faire en anglais. Moi, je préfère parce que la majorité des journalistes présents sont anglophones, je préfère que vous la faites en anglais et on distribue la version française.
Ok, bah donc je vais faire le contraire. Je vais enlever ma présentation en français et je vais ajouter celle en anglais. Et je vais
Alors,
partager
juste,
celle. Est-ce que vous pouvez l'envoyer, celle en français aux participants alors? C'est
ah oui,
exact,
bien
c'est
sûr, on va l'envoyer.
Et,
Juste remind,
oui.
just Giovanna, for all of you, as most of you are English speaking, Giovanna will present the English version, and the French version will be sent to all of you. Giovanna, you have the floor.
Okay. So thanks. I will initiate the presentation. So I was asked to do this. So first of all, thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you, talking a bit about the chemicals and waste conventions and the work that you do at UNEP on this theme. My presentation will be then on the key issues related to chemicals and waste and plans for the COPs, as discussed previously. When I spoke previously with Bala, I understood that the public is quite heterogeneous. So I thought it would be helpful to start the presentation with a short introduction on the jargon of what the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions are. Then move to the second point, which is the briefing to the meetings of the triple COPs that we will start end of July this year. And then issues related to chemicals and waste in Africa that actually, I just select a few points I thought would be relevant, but and the High Excellency, the Ministry, she did a great introduction already on the main points for chemicals and waste in Africa. I will just comment a bit on this. Next. So the introduction to the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. As I suppose you had already when you had the presentation on the Convention for Biodiversity 2 months ago. The Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention, they are also multilateral environmental agreements. And as such, and their objective is to protect the human health and the environment from hazardous chemicals and wastes. These conventions are legally binding instruments, and they address environmental problems that have a transboundary nature and often a global scope. So these problems can only be addressed effectively through international cooperation. The Basel Convention was adopted in 1989 and entered into force in 1992. I don't know if you know the difference is just that when the convention is adopted, you have all the diplomats that meet and approve the text of the convention, and enter into force. It's when it's really legally binding. And each convention has described in its text when the convention enters into force. So it entered into force 3 years later. It has today 188 parties, which is almost universal adoption, and has been ratified by 53 countries in Africa, so almost all the countries in Africa. The Secretariat is administered by the United Nations Environmental Programme. And the main concern of the Basel Convention is to avoid the dumping of hazardous wastes in countries where environmental awareness are less developed and regulations and enforcing mechanisms are lacking. The convention has mechanisms to ensure that the transboundary movements of hazardous wastes are minimized. And when these movements happen, they are conducted in a manner which protect human health and environment. The Rotterdam Convention was adopted in 1998 and entered into force in 2004. It has 164 parties and has been ratified by 48 countries in Africa. The Secretariat is administered jointly by the United Nations Environmental Programme and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. And the convention objectives are to promote the shared responsibility and cooperative efforts among parties in the international trade of certain chemicals in order to protect human health and environment, and contribute to the environmentally sound use of those hazardous chemicals by facilitating information exchange about their characteristics, including by providing for a national decision-making process on their import and export, and by disseminating these decisions to parties. If I have to summarize what in a few words what the Rotterdam Convention is, it's about the right to know and about empowering countries to take an informed decision on whether they want to import some chemicals or not, if they have the infrastructure in place to manage those chemicals once they are imported in the country. So the convention provides countries tools and information to prevent an unwanted trade of certain hazardous chemicals through a legally binding prior informed consent procedure. The Stockholm Convention is the last one of the three chemicals, what we call chemicals conventions. It was adopted in 2001 and entered into force in 2004. It has 108 parties, which is also almost universal adoption, and protects the human health and environment for a specific group of pollutants that are called persistent organic pollutants. It has been ratified by 53 countries in Africa as well. The Secretariat is administered by the United Nations Environmental Programme, and this persistent organic pollutants are a group of chemicals that have these four characteristics. They are persistent in the environment, meaning that they once they are released, they stay in the environment for a long time. They bioaccumulate in different species, meaning that what perhaps you have heard already about the fact that big fishes are more polluted than small ones, because the substance they bioaccumulate in the food chain. They have the potential for long-range environmental transport, which means that they may be released in Europe and be found in the Antarctic, which is often what happens. And there is evidence of adverse effects to human health and environment. Each convention, these three conventions, this where you can see here on my screen is the latest version of this convention, because every time you have a conference of the parties, what we call these COPs, you take decisions to amend the text, to add new chemicals to the conventions, and so it's updated regularly. This is the most updated version from 2009. And each of these conventions, everything that happens in the convention is described in the text. So if you look at the Article 15 of the Basel Convention, 18 of the Rotterdam Convention, or 19 of the Stockholm Convention, you have a description of how what this conference of the parties is and how it works. Then, and the conference of the parties, they keep on the continuous review and evaluation the implementation of this convention. The rules of procedure of the convention, for example, the decision on how regularly the conference of the parties should meet, these more detailed decisions they were taken later, when they had their first conference of the parties. Here, I'm including this just because I will mention a lot in the presentation what we called the Bureau of the Conference of the Parties. I explained this, so this is something that was developed at the first COP. When you had the first Conference of the Parties, they developed the terms of reference for this Bureau. And this Bureau is like, in the Conference of the Parties, you have all the parties to the convention represented. And here you have a smaller group that will take decisions between one COP and another. The conference decided then that of the terms of the Bureau of the Conference of the Parties, it commences its term of office at the closure of the meeting of the COP, at which they were elected, and they remain in office until the closure of the following ordinary meeting of the COP. Here you can see that all regional groups are represented in the Bureau. Here for the Basel Convention, you can see that you have 2 representatives per region and a rapporteur. This is the bureau that is working now for the 2021-2022 COP. Here for the Rotterdam Convention, you have one representative per region, and the president is from the African group. And here for the Stockholm Convention, you have also 2 per region. Here I'm mentioning what the synergies process, because this is something that happened for the 3 conventions, because since these 3 conventions, the 3 of them contribute to the protection of human health and the environment from hazardous chemicals and wastes in the end. In 2006, they decided to establish what they called this ad hoc joint working group on enhanced cooperation and coordination between Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. And this ad hoc joint working group had the objective to enhance the cooperation and coordination among these 3 conventions. It strengthened the implementation of the 3 conventions at the national, regional, and global levels, provide coherent policy guidance, and enhance the efficiency in the provision of support to parties to the convention, reducing the administrative burden and maximizing the effective and efficient use of resources at all levels. So, for example, one of these decisions, there were several decisions that were taken since this ad hoc joint work group was established. And you can see here that in 2013, you had the first joint COP. So although the 3 conventions are legally independent, autonomous, there's just, they meet in one single conference. They have the 3 conferences of the parties, but they happen at the same time. And the secretary, there's just one secretary for these 3 conventions, with one executive secretary, which today is Rolf Payet. Now that I introduced a bit of these words that you use often to describe the work of the conventions, I will move to the presentation of the triple COPs. But please note if any questions that you may have. I don't know if perhaps it's better that at the end of the presentation we come to any questions that you may have. So here it's the format for the 2021-2022 BRS Conference of the Parties. Usually we have these meetings every 2 years. It's a presential meeting, it's face-to-face meeting. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was not possible to organize the COPs as originally planned as face-to-face meetings end of July in Geneva. So as a result, in February 2021, the 3 COP bureaus agreed to organize the meetings in 2 separated segments. An online segment over 5 days from 26 to 30 July 2021, and a face-to-face segment over 2 weeks in 2022, and it will probably be in Geneva in June 2022, as I said. The theme for this COP will be global agreements for a healthy planet, sound management of chemicals and waste. If you want to see what will be discussed in these meetings, you have the agenda available already in the website. At the end of the presentation, I included a list with the documents and the symbols, how you can recognize them, so you can easily find them on the website. Given that the online segment and the face-to-face segments are 2 parts of the same meeting, the agendas of the COPs cover the totality of the whole meetings. As per the Bureau agreement, the online segment is expected to focus only on a limited number of agenda items for which essential or time-sensitive decisions need to be taken in 2021 and cannot be deferred to 2022. So I will look at the details of the so-called prioritized items in the next slide. During the face-to-face segment, the COPs will be expected to consider all the other items of their agendas that were not considered or concluded during the online segment and therefore deferred to the face-to-face segment. This slide is on the agenda items that have been prioritized for consideration by the COPs during their online segment, as well as the expected scope of the decisions that the COPs will be expected to adopt. So you can see that the first item is the program of work and budget for the Secretariat. The current budget of the conventions ends on 31st December 2021. And for this reason, there is a need to develop a budget to cover the first, let's say, 6 months of 2022. And this has to be adopted now to ensure the continuation of the operations of the Secretariat in 2022. On the basis of this rationale, the Bureau agreed that during the online segment under the item on program of work and budget, the COPs would be expected to consider interim budgets for 2022 to allow for the continuation of activities, and then a full budget will be approved at the face-to-face COP in 2022. The second prioritized item related to the elections for the COPs of the Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention. You have some committees for the implementation of the convention. For example, for the Stockholm Convention, you have a committee called Effectiveness Evaluation Committee, which is responsible for leading the process that evaluates if the convention is being effective in achieving its objective, which is to reduce POPs, the pollution by persistent organic pollutants. These members that are elected regularly, and the terms of it will end in, I think, April 2022. So there is a need to extend their terms until the next COP at least. The same for the Rotterdam Convention Compliance Committee, which is the committee in charge of evaluating if parties are being compliant with the obligations under the convention, and the term will also expire on 4 May 2022. The third item of this prioritized agenda is the decision on the venue and date of the face-to-face segment of the COPs. So although we say tentatively it should be in June 2022 in Geneva, but the decision will be taken officially, can only be taken by the COP, which will happen now, end of June 2021. And the fourth prioritized item is the only one that's more technical. You see that all the other ones, the program of work, the election of officers, or the venue and date, are more related to the procedures of the convention. They're there just because they're time sensitive. But the financial resources and mechanisms of the Stockholm Convention is the only one more technical, but they've been included here also because it's time sensitive. The Stockholm Convention COP is expected to consider and adopt a process-oriented decision to forward to the Global Environment Facility two reports. And if you know, the Global Environmental Facility is it's the biggest donor, I think, of environmental projects, and the Global Environment Facility is the principal financial mechanism for the Stockholm Convention. And every COP, the Secretariat developed 2 reports that they sent to the financial mechanism. One is on the needs of to implement the convention, how much funds parties need to comply with the obligations under the convention, and the second one that review if the financial mechanism is working as expected. So these 2 reports are already available, and this year this financial mechanism is also deciding what will be the priorities, how funds will be allocated for the next years. So if you will wait until the next COP, to the face-to-face COP, to have the discussion, we will miss this opportunity to inform the decisions of this financial mechanism on how funds should be used according to the decision of the Conference of the Parties. And the final decision, of course, will be taken at the face-to-face segment in 2022. Here, I think it's too much details. Perhaps I shouldn't but just to give you an idea of how the online segment is organized, even if it's a virtual meeting now. You have here the color code. You have in green, you have the sessions that are related to the Basel Convention, in blue for the Rotterdam Convention, in orange for the Stockholm Convention, and the other ones are joint sessions. The meetings will happen from the 26th July to 30th of July 2021 online. Usually they start with opening remarks from the president of each convention. That is the president of that bureau that I mentioned before. Then you have the executive secretary of the convention, the UNEP executive secretary as well. Then you have you have the representatives of each region that may want to make some remarks, a short remark, like 5 minutes remark, the short statement. And then here they approve the agenda, they discuss the budget, work plan, yeah, and that's how usually it goes, this the discussions. Besides this meeting, the official meeting, we will have joint bureau meetings that will be held every day before the meeting starts. They will start on Friday before the meeting starts, and then every day from 10 to 11 they will meet to prepare for the meeting. Regional groups, they can also meet during the online segment upon request. And we will have also side events at the COPs, even if it's a virtual event. We had a process to select some interested panels for the side events that are not yet completed, but as soon as it's completed, it will be made available by the website. And during the meeting, you have an intranet homepage, provide the schedule of the planned meetings that may change from one day to another according to the needs of these regional groups and yeah, the side events. Here, looking ahead towards the face-to-face resumed meetings. The proposed dates, as I said before, will be from the 6th to the 17th of June 2022 in the International Conference Center in Geneva. This is to be agreed by the COPs at the online segment. The arrangements for the high-level segment will be further considered by the Bureau after the online segment. Usually you have like ministers, they have a separated meeting during the COP. And the theme will be the same, global agreements for a healthy planet, sound management of chemicals and waste. Here I added just 3 slides just to explain very quickly, because it's very procedural, the decision that will be taking this first meeting, and all the other ones will be taking only in the presential face-to-face next year. Perhaps you can consider organize another briefing before that one. But I listed here a few points, so just for you to have an idea of, besides approving technical guidance, evaluating if countries are complying with the convention, there are proposals, for example, to amend the text of the convention. So for the Basel Convention, for example, they will be discussing these 3 proposals, this from Russia, from European Union, and from Ghana and Switzerland, to amend annexes of the convention. And this means, for example, this here for the Russian Federation is to amend the definition of management in the convention. This one from the European Union is to amend the Annex 4, which is related to disposal operations, or the definition of this one, for example, that 9 is about a certain type of waste. So just for you to have an idea of the type of discussions that they have for the Basel Convention. For the Rotterdam Convention, they have this chemical review committee, which decides that they have already decided to recommend that the COP list these chemicals in Annex 3 to the convention, which means they will be subject to that prior informed consent that I mentioned before. So these are the industrial chemicals that are proposed for listing, have to be approved by the Conference of the Parties. These 2 pesticides and these 2 what they call severely hazardous pesticide formulations. Then here for the Stockholm Convention, there will also the Persistent Organic Pollutants Review Committee that has decided to recommend the listing of this chemical. I don't know how to say with this X here. and its related compounds into the Annex A, which means it's for elimination, and it doesn't have any specific exemption. And then on key chemicals and waste issues in Africa, I think that the minister made a great and complete presentation on what are the needs and the main topics in Africa. So what I had done is, this is an information that I took from a report on technical assistance needs assessment that was made by the BRS Convention 2020. And I took the top three priorities as identified by countries. So you can see that, for example, for the Basel Convention, countries identified the need to be supported on the environmental sound management of hazardous and other waste, prevent and control of illegal traffic, and waste prevention and minimization. For the Rotterdam Convention, support customs officers in implementing the convention, monitoring and reporting pesticide poisoning incidents related to severely hazardous pesticide formulations, monitoring and surveillance of national exposure situations to support possible decision on banning or severely restricting some pesticides. And then on the Stockholm Convention, they mentioned the support on legal institutional framework, development of legal institutional frameworks to manage stockpiles and waste, and develop national implementation plans for the convention. Here is just to show you for her the Stockholm and the Basel regional. The objective of the slide actually is to introduce you to this, which is the Stockholm and Basel regional centers in Africa, which means the Basel and the Stockholm Convention, they have this network of centers that have the objective to build capacity and transfer technology to countries in the region. The green ones that you can see here are the centers for the Basel Convention, and the orange ones are for the Stockholm Convention. Sometimes you have the same, like here in South Africa, they have is the same center for the Stockholm and the Basel Center, and they have several activities to support capacity building in the region. Here is just the objective of this slide is to introduce you to the special program projects, which is has the objective to promote institutional strengthening for the chemicals cluster. The government is interested in applying for funding. They are invited to submit applications. The last one is still open. Out of the 42 countries that have already benefited from funds from the special program, there are 12 African countries, which are Angola, Benin, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Gambia, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, Tunisia, and Uganda. Here, I will not mention any details, but also, as I mentioned before, remember the Global Environmental Facility, which is the principal financial mechanism for the Stockholm Convention. So since they are the principal entity entrusted with the operations of the financial mechanism for the Stockholm Convention, according to Articles 13 and 14, they have funded several projects in Africa, which goes from enabling activities for the development of national implementation plans, to the disposal of pesticides and PCBs, the identification of alternatives to DDT, projects to reduce unintentional POPs emissions with dioxin interference mainly from open burning, for example. And recently they have other projects related to the establishment of a circular economy for the plastics, for the textile sector, or the electronic sector. If you want more, I invite you to visit the GEF website, where you have more information on the projects and the grant volume that each country has received. And this just said, the map is just for reference. I took it from the GEF website. And finally, the objective of this slide here is just to end this very quite superficial presentation, because there's so much we could talk about the work of the conventions and chemicals and waste. Just to end on a positive note and show that all this work has results, although it's not perfect, and the ministry is right. There are many challenges there still to be addressed, but the the work has had results, and these results, they are being measured. So according to the Article 16 of the Stockholm Convention, the effectiveness of the convention has to be measured, and in regular intervals they monitor the persistent organic pollutants in different matrices, usually air, water, and milk. And the conclusion of the latest one that was released in May 2021, so quite recently, is that the levels of certain POPs are indeed decreasing. Perhaps not as fast as you wanted, but they are increasing. Here is just heads up to mention that the media usually can participate on these discussions. So just for you to know that before the event, there will be an official press release. There will be a live tweeting throughout the meetings, both the virtual and the face-to-face segment. There will be a closing press release to summarize outcomes of the discussions. And if you have any need for information, requests for interviews, you can address them to this, my colleague Charles Zavid, his contact is here. And if anyone really want to attend this, because the online version, as you could see, it's just preparation. But if you're really interested in attending, also please contact Charlie and he can discuss, work out the details. This is just listed. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you very much. And please, I'm here to answer to any questions that you may have. I put here my contact and the Stockholm Convention website where you'll find all this information that's publicly available. And I will also share my presentations in French and English. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Giovanna. Thank you very much, Giovanna. Now we will send you, for the people French speaking, we will send you the version, French version of the presentation of Giovanna. So now the floor is yours, Dr. Balakrishna Pisupati.
Thank you, Mr. Sidhi. Maybe I think we can have a quick short presentation about UNEP's work on chemicals and and waste. And I have my colleague Joyce who will be making the presentation, but this is complementing the work that is being presented is done in collaboration with the BRS Secretariat. Joyce, you have the floor.
Thank you, Bala. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Joyce Jelagat from UNEP Law Division under the Environmental Governance and Conventions branch. So I'm going to give a short presentation on what UNEP does, and this is specific to the Law Division, Environmental Governance and Conventions branch. There's a lot of work being done by the other divisions within UNEP in contribution to the chemicals and waste agenda, including the economy division, which has a dedicated branch on which is called chemicals and waste, chemicals and health branch, which contributes to chemicals and contributes to minimizing the adverse effects of chemicals and human health. Yeah, so I will share my presentation in a moment. Okay, so within the branch, Environmental Governance and Conventions branch at UNEP, we support the implementation and preparation for the conference of parties to related to chemicals and waste conventions, and we work in close cooperation with MEAs by coordinating the preparations for the meetings of the conference of parties, which include the coordinating UNEP executive director's report to the conference of parties. We also coordinate UNEP's participation at the COPs and subsidiary bodies meetings. In 2021, on chemicals and waste, as also mentioned by Giovanna, there's the BRS COP online session of the COP for the BRS, and also Minamata Convention COP4, which will be held on 1st to 5th November. For effective coordination on MEA-related issues, the Environmental Governance and Conventions branch has designated MEA focal points within the branch. So, in this case, like on chemicals and waste-related issues, my colleague Hadi Gise, who is currently on leave and whom I'm presenting on behalf, is the focal point for chemicals and waste-related MEAs. In terms of implementation, the environmental implementation of chemicals and waste-related MEAs, the Environmental Governance and Conventions branch provides support to implementation through implementation of strategic objectives of chemicals and waste-related conventions and COP decisions through projects and activities, which include a collaboration that we did with the University of Massachusetts, where we analyzed the performance and implementation of MEAs for 2 African countries, that is Rwanda and Gambia, by utilizing an index, which is called Environmental Conventions Index, to measure and assess actions taken by parties to implement the globally agreed environmental goals. So the analysis focused on 6 conventions in 2 thematic areas on biodiversity and chemicals and waste, and under chemicals and waste clusters, by Basel and Stockholm Conventions were analyzed. The report provided systematic comparative information about countries' performance, and also which could also be useful to policymakers in articulating clear goals, strategies, and also identifying the necessary resources, which could be human resources, finances, and technical resources, to address the gaps and improve performance in implementing MEAs. Again, in 2020, between November and December 2020, we partnered with the University of Massachusetts and launched an online course on implementation of multilateral environmental agreements to build the capacity of national focal points of selected MEAs and government representatives directly engaged in national policies on MEAs. The course brought together in total 37 national focal points of biodiversity and chemicals and waste-related conventions from 5 African countries to exchange information and share experiences on effective implementation. The five countries that participated in the course were Kenya, Gambia, Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Kenya, Gambia, Sudan, Uganda, and Rwanda who participated in the course. And as mentioned, we had a total of 37 participants. And yes. Also on effective implementation of chemicals and waste-related MEAs, within the context of the ACP MEAs program, UNEP and the Bamako Convention are implementing a project on improved guidelines, national frameworks, legislations, and mechanisms for effective implementation of chemicals and waste-related MEAs. Through the project, technical guidelines to promote the implementation of chemicals and waste-related MEAs will be developed. A capacity building workshop and webinars will be held to identify ways of ensuring effective implementation of chemicals and waste-related MEAs. The MEAs to be involved in this case will be the BRS conventions, Minamata Convention, and the Bamako Convention. The modality for the capacity building workshop will be determined based on the COVID-19 restrictions and guidelines by different countries. Again, we have another project on strengthening coordination and collaboration between biodiversity, chemicals, and waste clusters. Recognizing that there is a close interlinkage between biodiversity and chemicals and waste, we provide support to a Nordic Council of Ministers funded project initiated to enhance cooperation and coordination across biodiversity and chemicals and waste clusters and facilitating synergies at the national level. The project consists of two parts. The first part is an overall analysis of the potential for strengthening cooperation and synergies across chemicals and waste clusters, which will also include a case study on the effects of pesticides on pollinators. The second part will be an online consultation workshop scheduled for September 2021. The dates are to be determined for MEA secretariats and the focal points. UNEP WCMC is currently preparing the study, which will be made available for review in the coming months, for review by the participants and also by the participants for the workshop. UNEP will use the study as a basis for organizing a consultation workshop to stimulate dialogue on experiences and opportunities and to identify options for future action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Joyce Jelagat from UNEP. This is a very interesting presentation. Now the floor is to Mr. Balakrishna. If there is someone to intervene, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sidi. I think we can open the floor for comments, questions, and inputs, if you're okay. And as I mentioned, I may have to step out briefly for another meeting. So maybe, Mr. Sidi, if you can help in coordinating the discussion and the question answer session, I certainly would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Balakrishna. Now the floor is journalist. And I saw that Mr. Dawood from Sudan, the president of Samesha and member of ANEJ, want to say something. Mr. Dawood, you have the floor.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, 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 we're hearing you. Mr. Dawood, yes. Mr. Alain, please switch off your camera.
Thank you very much. I'm
camera et le micro.
Okay. Can I start?
Go on.
Thank
Yes,
you very much, all of you. Thank you very much, all of you. It's really very good and imperative presentations we have today. We are very happy to be here, ANEJ and UNEP webinar. What Africa needs is really just organizing such these dialogues and presentations just to acknowledge what is next and how to resolve the problems through the media, because media is reaching a far place. So it was nice, but my suggestion is to include the journalists. All the workshop is related to these issues from UNEP. My suggestion is to invite a group from ANEJ members just who can participate all the workshops who are going and which are going on inside the UNEP or even about the convention. Is just because if UNEP invite 10 or 5 journalists from ANEJ members, maybe we can all share that knowledge and the idea through our media outlets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dawood. Now the floor is for journalists. Mr. Michael Simere, member of ANEJ, is from Nigeria, Mr. Michael Simare, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for the discussions. It's been a very profitable and knowledgeable discussion so far, and I want to enjoin ANEJ and UNEP to continue in this aspect. I just have some suggestions. I want us to look at other areas that will be very interesting in terms of the UNEP endeavors, like the Minamata Convention, which is which I've covered closely for some time, and also the several conventions as well that relate to the environment that UNEP is handling. And I also want to suggest that perhaps UNEP can look at some other issues like more assistance to ANEJ. You can, for example, a fellowship program can be initiated to ensure that members of UNEP are physically present in some of these COPs. There are several COPs that relate to UNEP, even the COP coming up in Kunming in China, and also the COP coming up in the UK, in Scotland. A physical presence will ensure a better coverage, a better knowledgeable coverage. And during those COPs, several events can be organized. There could be even capacity building events. There will be mentoring events that could be initiated into the media, the journalist program. And I also want to suggest that UNEP can also assist us in terms of like a center whereby we can have a place where knowledge center, like a website, whereby we can engage ourselves, store information, and exchange information and ideas, like a site in that regard. I'm not sure if ANEJ has a very functional website, but in case, even if we do, it can be upgraded to become a very functional one in that regard. I think I will stop here. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you for giving me the floor to express my views.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thank you so much, Michael Simre from Nigeria and Asia. Okay, I've seen some people raise hand, but before that, excuse me, let me just read the two questions from our Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Abdoulaye Cham from Senegal. He got some technical problem, so he's not able to directly intervene. So the questions are, first question, toxic waste is often dumped in Africa. What should be the place of education to counter this? Question two, pesticides are used by our farmers. It's not necessary that the local authorities be vis-a-vis the ministries for sensibilization. This is that's from Mr. Abdoulaye. Now we see that some people asking for raising their hand. Okay. Huh? Let me see. Mr. Ibrahim. Ibrahima? Yes. Ibrahima. Oh, let me just correct Madame Fatounian from Sénégal. You have the floor. Madame Fatounian, vous avez la parole. Vous avez demandé la parole. Vous avez la parole, Madame Fatounian. Mais je vous demande de couper la caméra. Madame Fatou, coupez la caméra pour améliorer la qualité de de la communication visuelle, la communication, pardon, sonore. Merci de couper la caméra et juste laisser le micro ouvert. Merci.
C'est bon?
Oui, très bon. Vous pouvez maintenant, vous avez la parole, madame.
Voilà, donc je voudrais remercier les ministres ici présents ainsi que les distingués participants et nos confrères. Donc, je voudrais également quand même adresser mes sincères félicitations au grand Sidi El Mokhtar, au président du réseau africain des journalistes spécialisés en environnement, notre réseau, ainsi que le directeur du programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement, pour la tenue de cette importante rencontre sur la pollution et les déchets chimiques. Cette rencontre est d'autant plus importante que ces produits dont il est question aujourd'hui, nous avons écouté le discours de Madame la ministre du Congo. Et on peut dire que ces chiffres quand même et ces révélations font froid dans le dos. Parce que ces produits dont il est question aujourd'hui, je le disais tout à l'heure, sont utiles pour notre environnement. Mais, il y a un grand mais, si dangereux pour nos pays en développement qui n'ont toujours pas les moyens de leur gestion, car leur impact sur notre environnement et notre santé sont néfastes. Cette rencontre donc de haut niveau sur ce sujet avec une variété de présences importantes vient à point nommé à mon avis, car les déchets constituent un fléau, un danger croissant pour l'homme qu'il est temps de combattre. Madame la ministre quand même a dans son discours souligné l'arrivée incessante de produits dangereux chimiques. Donc, moi, face à ce fléau, une interrogation m'intrigue, et ça vient des autorités, d'une autorité. Et je voudrais m'adresser quand même aux autorités présentes, aux décideurs présents. Pourquoi assistons aujourd'hui régulièrement, impunément, à l'arrivée incessante de déchets hautement toxiques dans nos pays? Pourquoi accepter que l'Afrique soit un dépotoir d'ordures? Je pense que c'est une question à laquelle il faudra trouver une réponse. Car il y a eu trop de morts, il y en a et ça va s'empirer si on y prend garde. Donc, j'avais également une deuxième interrogation. Pourquoi nos États, les États africains, ne mettent-ils pas suffisamment de moyens sur le recyclage? Le recyclage, c'est une forme de gestion des déchets qui consiste à tout reconvertir en produits réutilisés, réutilisables et qui joue un rôle non négligeable dans la protection de l'environnement. Moi, je pense que les États devraient accompagner davantage les acteurs qui évoluent dans ce domaine et qui sont souvent confrontés à un problème de moyens. Car il faut le dire, toutes les formes de pollution dans le monde moderne émanent de ces déchets toxiques-là. Le recyclage, donc, pourrait contribuer à véritablement réduire la pollution. Une troisième question, si c'est possible, pourquoi ne pas tout simplement instaurer une gestion africaine? Madame la ministre disait tantôt de gestion internationale, ce serait tant mieux des produits chimiques. Est-ce si difficile à faire? En tout cas, je crois qu'il est temps de réagir, car nous ne saurions continuer à tolérer ces nombreuses pertes en vie humaine imputables à une pollution mortelle et sa mauvaise gestion. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Fatou Ndiaye. C'est une intéressante question. Je voudrais dire à tout le monde quand même que, étant donné le temps qui nous était imparti est quasiment terminé, nous n'allons pas probablement avoir des réponses tout de suite, immédiatement. Mais toutes les questions, je demande à tous ceux qui ont posé des questions de les écrire, de nous les envoyer par email. Nous les enverrons à UNEP, les réponses aux experts des Nations Unies, et les réponses seront bien sûr dans notre document, et notamment dans le document de ce webinaire, puisque ce webinaire sera suivi le 7 septembre par une autre réunion. Voilà, je pense que nous n'allons pas prendre tout le monde, hélas, parce que nous n'avons pas beaucoup de temps. Je vais demander quand même à deux personnes encore de parler. Peut-être que monsieur, attendez, qui je vois? Alors, je vois beaucoup de monde. Christiane Monoki, peut-être. Christiane Monoki, vous avez la parole.
Merci, merci. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Mokhtar. D'abord, je vous remercie vivement pour l'initiative. Vous me suivez?
Oui, absolument.
Je vous remercie pour l'initiative. Vraiment, souvent on parle d'autres sujets, mais parler de ces sujets qui est qui est vraiment relatif, qui est important pour notre vie, pour notre santé, pour notre monde, pour notre continent. Je pense que l'implication de journalistes, elle est capitale pour la sensibilisation. Et ici, moi, je ne pose pas une question, mais j'ai plutôt une préoccupation après avoir suivi tous les intervenants, Madame la ministre, les experts des Nations Unies. Alors, il y a un constat, c'est que dans nos pays sous-développés, d'abord que la plus grande partie de notre continent est encore en train de chercher à se développer, il y a cette mauvaise gestion des déchets, ou disons même qu'il n'y en a pas. Moi, par exemple, ici, chez nous, en RDC, c'est tout un problème. Donc, les déchets, on ne parle pas, on n'entre pas encore dans le déchet chimique et tout, mais c'est que nous produisons nous-mêmes et comment est-ce que nous le gérons, ça devient un problème, et vraiment un problème urgent. Alors, c'est pourquoi moi, je voulais que nous, journalistes qui sommes là, si on peut peut-être proposer et proposer, c'est-à-dire qu'il y ait comme un fonds des pays à pouvoir aider les autres pays qui ne s'en sortent pas à gérer ces déchets-là. Parce que ce n'est pas une mince affaire. Il y a quand même un budget qui va avec la gestion de déchets. Bon, peut-être qu'on peut parler aussi de la mauvaise gouvernance qui peut entraîner ces désordres à ce niveau-là. Nous produisons déjà, selon une étude, 10 000 tonnes de déchets par jour. Vous vous rendez compte? Mais ces déchets-là ne sont pas, disons, on ne s'occupe pas, il y a pas, elles ne sont pas, ces déchets-là ne sont pas gérés. On a essayé, l'État a essayé de prendre des mesures en ce qui concerne le sachet plastique, parce que nous avons la consommation d'eau. Il y a les vendeurs d'eau à la criée, hein, avec des sachets, mais tout ça, quand on consomme, on jette dans la rue, on jette partout, et le gouvernement a du mal à gérer tout ça. Il y a bien sûr un grand programme avec la province de Kinshasa, la capitale. On a intitulé ça Kinbupeto, ça signifie Kinshasa propre, où le gouverneur est en train de se battre pour qu'il y ait quand même cette gestion-là. Mais le dépôt même, les dépôts, donc comme on appelle ça, les endroits où on doit accumuler ces déchets-là sont en souffrance. Donc, on ne sait pas après comment gérer ces déchets-là. Et ça se trouve même en plein centre-ville. Il y a des coins où, là où il y a les dépôts de ces déchets-là, ça pose problème. Et je pense qu'il y a lieu qu'il y ait une certaine solidarité et que ces problèmes soient soulevés au niveau de l'Afrique ou de l'Union africaine, où nous, les journalistes, comme nous saisissons le problème, que nous puissions vraiment porter l'écho, en parler plus pour qu'il y ait une solution, les pays qui ne s'en sortent pas, comme ça se fait par exemple avec le vaccin. Il y a l'opération COVAX pour que le pays du tiers-monde s'en sorte. Donc, je pense un peu à cet élan-là des solidarités à un fonds qui puisse aider les pays qui ne s'en sortent pas dans la gestion de leurs déchets, quoi. C'était ça mon intervention.
Merci beaucoup, Christiane. Merci beaucoup, Christiane. Écoutez, nous allons passer à la dernière phase de ce webinaire, c'est-à-dire les perspectives d'avenir de la coopération, de la collaboration ANEJ Nations Unies. Et nous allons écouter deux discours qui sont très, très courts, en anglais et en français. Le premier avec Mme Menesia Muinjo de Namibie, qui est la vice-présidente de ANEJ, et le second discours en français avec M. Alex Zaka de Madagascar, basé à Paris, qui est notre conseiller stratégique. Nous allons donc commencer avec Menesia Muinjo. ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Madame Menesia Mwenju from Namibia. She is the Vice President of African Network of Environmental Journalists. She has a speech on future, on plans future. Madame Menesia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, Ministers, dear Dr. Balakrishna, dear ANEJ President, he just introduced me, ladies and gentlemen, fellow journalists, greetings from Windhoek, Namibia. Thank you for having granted a few minutes to my colleague Alex Zaka and I to briefly address you on this historic occasion. We are the voice of the aspirations and motivations of the colleagues, the journalists, the members of ANEJ. Today, we have tackled some of the challenges that are plaguing our planet. These are chemical pollution and waste, which are a real threat to diversity and the world's population. Being aware of this state of affairs, we journalists from the continent are affirming our contribution towards this fight. We do this through our role, that of informing, educating, and enlightening citizens, and we can even be whistleblowers. ANEJ is a formidable network, as you know it, with strong points which include a solid professional experience acquired over more than 15 years. It has the capacity to rapidly disseminate information, and thanks to the continental network of committed colleagues, as proof of ANEJ's agility, about 100 members and participants are present at this virtual gathering. In February 2020, that's before the world's pandemic, 3 journalists, ANEJ members, participated in the Convention on Diversity in Rome. Reports and interviews from that convention were relayed to several countries on the African continent. Awareness sessions like this one benefit us. Nevertheless, the aspirations of each of us is to forge a true and lasting partnership with UNEP. With a rapidly changing media industry environment, when it comes to technology, ANEJ members need to have the same level of information at the same speed and be able to distribute their reports or content, be it audio, video, articles, through their own portal, the ANEJ portal. I heard somebody already mentioning about the need to have the website. That's what we are talking about going forward. There is therefore an urgent need for ANEJ to create or at least upgrade its portal, the website. But to do that, ANEJ, as you know it, that this is a non-financial organization, we need resources and support through smart partnership with United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP. Capacity building is another essential element to keep ANEJ vibrant, but we believe that it must be supplemented by periodic face-to-face seminars, because part of that highly publicized annual conventions, such as the BRS, the CBD or COP on climate, there are also preparatory meetings of experts where the role of ANEJ is critical, especially when it comes to follow-up of rounds of negotiations and just the general information dissemination, as it was mentioned by other colleagues there. I will end here because we have my colleague, Alex Zaka, who is following me. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you very much, Vice President Menesia. I just said to you that Menesia Mwenjo is a Vice President of ANEJ. She is a prominent journalist, Namibian journalist, and she's a director at the National TV broadcast of Namibia. Mesdames, Messieurs, merci pour la vice-présidente d'ANEJ, Madame Menesia Miesu, qui est une très, très célèbre journaliste namibienne et qui est directrice à la télévision nationale de Namibie. Nous allons maintenant donner la parole à un membre fondateur d'ANEJ, qui est notre conseiller stratégique, Monsieur Alex Mami Zaka, qui est de Madagascar, qui est basé à Paris et qui va donc prononcer le mot en français. Mami Zaka est un célèbre journaliste de la Corne de l'Afrique, plutôt des îles et Small Island in Africa. Mami Zaka, vous avez la parole. Mais Mami Zaka, le micro est fermé. Votre micro, répétez ce que vous avez dit parce que le micro est fermé. Votre micro n'est pas ouvert.
Voilà.
C'est bon, je pense. Allez-y. Je pense que le micro...
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Monsieur le secrétaire général du ministère de la Culture et des Relations avec le Parlement de Mauritanie, Monsieur le Président de l'APA, cher Dr Balakrishna, cher Président Sidi Cheyer, Mesdames et Messieurs les participants, bonjour. Merci de nous avoir accordé quelques minutes à ma consoeur Ménissia de Namibie et moi-même. Nous sommes les porte-voix des aspirations et la motivation de nos confrères, journalistes adhérents à ANEJ. Nous avons aujourd'hui abordé un autre aspect des fléaux qui submergent notre planète, la pollution chimique et la gestion des déchets, qui est une véritable menace pour la biodiversité et la population mondiale. Conscients de cet état de fait, nous, journalistes du continent, voulons apporter notre pierre à cette lutte. Notre rôle est d'informer, éclairer les citoyens, voire être des lanceurs d'alerte. Le point fort de notre association ANEJ est son expérience acquise depuis plus de 15 ans, mais également de sa capacité de diffusion et de la rapidité de la circulation de l'information, grâce à un maillage continental. Pour preuve, aujourd'hui, nous sommes une cinquantaine de membres qui ont répondu présents. En février 2020, c'est le monde d'avant la pandémie, nous étions 3 journalistes à avoir participé à la Convention sur la biodiversité à Rome. Nos interviews et nos reportages ont été relayés dès le lendemain sur plusieurs pays du continent africain. Les sessions de sensibilisation comme celle-ci sont bénéfiques. Néanmoins, l'aspiration de chacun d'entre nous est de nouer un véritable partenariat avec le PNUE. Pour cela, il nous faut des moyens pour que, d'une part, chaque membre ait le même niveau d'information et d'autre part, nous sommes à même de pouvoir diffuser nos reportages, audio, vidéo ou nos articles sur un même support avec notre portail ANEJ. Ainsi, il faudra rapidement créer un réseau intranet, mais également un site web. Le renforcement de capacités est essentiel, mais nous estimons qu'il doit être nécessairement complété par des séminaires périodiques en présence physique, car en dehors des conventions annuelles très médiatisées telles que la BRS, la CBD, les différentes COP sur le climat ou la diversification, il existe également des réunions préparatoires d'experts. C'est là où notre rôle est indispensable pour le suivi des cycles de négociation. Encore une fois, je vous remercie à vous tous et ainsi qu'à ma consoeur Ménissia. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.
Merci beaucoup, Alex Zaka. Merci tout le monde. Nous avons, je pense, fait le tour de la question. Je ne sais pas si le docteur Balakrishna a un mot pour la fin. Quant à moi, je vous remercie tous. Je rappelle que le 7 septembre, nous avons un webinaire sur l'économie bleue, les océans et l'économie bleue. Et dans l'espoir que cette pandémie de coronavirus prenne fin, nous aurons certainement l'occasion de se retrouver physiquement dans de grandes manifestations environnementales, notamment la COP de Chine en fin d'année sur la biodiversité et la COP de Glasgow en fin d'année également sur les changements climatiques à Glasgow, au Royaume-Uni. En attendant, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of this webinar. I thank everyone. I thank UNEP, ANEJ members. Mr. Balakrishna, if you have some words for the end of the webinar, you have the floor. And I remind you all that we will take a photo, family photo, as we say in French, la famille de photo. So you can open the camera. All of you can open the camera after the words from Mr. Balakrishna. Thank you very much. Tout le monde doit ouvrir après le mot de Balakrishna. Tout le monde peut activer sa caméra parce qu'on va prendre une photo de famille, une photo du webinaire avec les visages. Merci. Mr. Balakrishna, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Sidi, and thank you very much, colleagues. Apologies because I had to sort of swap between two different meetings. Thank you very much for your interest, for your participation. In this webinar, as I mentioned, is second in a series that we are planning to have. I did hear some of the comments and some of the suggestions that had come from the participants at this webinar in terms of continued support, enhanced support, and how it can be more effective in terms of working with all of you coming from media and journalistic background. So certainly from UNEP, we will explore all the possibilities. As I mentioned that in principle, we have agreed that we will continue to have these briefings once in 2 months. As I said, that the next briefing will be on the 7th of September, focusing on issues of oceans and seas and governance. And then I did hear also about the request for a briefing session on Mercury, the Minamata Convention. And incidentally, I was just being approached by colleagues from the European Environment Bureau who works with us on some of these issues, also indicating the need for focusing on it. So if there is an agreement, maybe the briefing that we will have in November, which is 2 months from September, can focus on the issue of Mercury and Minamata Convention. So that's basically a kind of a plan for you to organize yourselves. I also heard about the request that all the journalists within the ANEJ family be invited. So certainly I'm sure Mr. Sidi would have taken note of it and will certainly follow up on that. From our side, we are more than happy to engage. But what is now more important is that in addition to some of these activities that we are planning and delivering, what could certainly help both UNEP as well as yourselves, I'm sure you will agree, is that if we can identify a few topics on which you basically would be interested to further write some feature articles, write some newspaper articles and things like that. So through ANEJ, if we can receive a list of some of those articles that you're interested to produce and publish in the coming 2 or 3 months, that will also help us to identify what kind of knowledge and support systems we can try and find to help you plan some of those processes forward. Of course, there was a strong mention about a long-term structured capacity building support. So we just will certainly explore that opportunity. We're already in discussion with ANEJ on that, and we will definitely do our best to keep this support going. And certainly we would like to use this example from Africa as a kind of an inspiring example for other regions in Caribbean and also in the Pacific regions as well. So with that, thanks a lot to all of you for joining. And I know that we have ran up beyond time. We thought of 90 minutes, but we have almost done for more than 2 hours now. So it shows the interest. So thanks a lot and all the best. And over to you, Mr. Sidi.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Balakrishna. Juste un rappel, s'il vous plaît. Tout à l'heure, j'avais omis de dire que le ministère mauritanien de l'Environnement et du Développement durable était représenté par la conseillère en communication, Madame Toutou Bouka. C'est donc chose faite. I was reminded by Ministry of Environment and the Sustainable Development that Ministry is represented by his counselor, Madame Toutou Bouka. It's done. So, thank you. Et la photo de famille, tout le monde, s'il vous plaît, ouvrez les caméras. Merci beaucoup et merci.
Thank you.
Visiblement, je n'ai pas été sélectionné pour que ma caméra affiche.
C'est pas grave, tout le monde. Si, la caméra, toutes les caméras. La caméra
Please unmute my camera.
On allume les caméras.
Moi, je n'aime pas je n'ai plus l'icône de la caméra.
Unmute my camera.
On allume la caméra ou bien?
Oui.
Oui. Allumez la caméra. Allumez les caméras. Oui.
Please unmute my camera.
C'est pour la photo de famille.
Oh. My camera is locked, please.
Ma caméra aussi n'est pas visible.
My camera is locked, Judica.
Moi aussi, ça va, ok. Ça vient, ça passe.
Ça, c'est la
Please.
sorcellerie
Ça doit être un problème de connexion pour l'internet.
Ma caméra, je n'ai pas pu ouvrir ma caméra.
My camera is...
bon?
And mine too, my dear. Please.
Possible.
Je vais regarder Minge et Christiane.
Unmute my camera.
Oh my God. Je voudrais juste voir.
My camera, please.
Minge, Manisia et Christiane.
Je ne sais pas si c'est vous qui désactivez, mais c'est plus visible l'icône.
Please, my camera. Tell me only selected participants can share the video. I can't show you. Hi.
Hi.
My camera.
Hi. Oh là là.
Good. I think we can just sort of.
Still muted, my camera.
Jeanne, je te vois,
Oui.
Jeanne, ça va?
Hein?
Oui, ça va. J'étais beaucoup réclamée. Je me disais. Oui, Christiane.
Please, I want to share the photo. How can I?
Okay.